He said that Jesus Christ has risen, and he is the open door.
Well, how you doing, everyone? Welcome to this bonus episode of the Cajun Conservative Show. I'm your host, Isaac Hayes. We're talking about life. We're talking about liberty. We're talking about the pursuit of happiness. And yes, we're showing the world that Cajuns do have intelligence. And as I say, this is a bonus episode, ladies and gentlemen. I have a great guest on with me today. Some people might be scratching their heads when they hear this episode, but I have a liberal online with me today. His name is Leroy. He is known in the TikTok world as the Liberal Trucker. And Leroy, welcome to the Cajun Conservative Show, where we make sure everybody feels welcome.
How's it going, man? Thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem. So, Leroy, before we get into politics and talking about things like that, I just want to let the audience know how we met and how we got to interact with one another. You were doing a TikTok live, and out of all days to find you is when Trump was indicted by the DA grand jury. And you put on the caption, the best day ever. As a conservative and seeing your name, I'm like, oh, he's talking crap about Trump. Let me see what I could hear. And you had a whole different scenario why it was the best day ever. Someone asked you to be their adopted father.
Yes, my oldest son, Max. He is actually he is my ex-wife Danielle's son, but he has a different father. And he was living with his father, and he came out to his father as transgender. And his father basically said, "You know what? I don't support this. I'm not going to have any part of this. If you go through with this, you're not my son anymore." And it was probably about a year and a half ago. Max just contacted me out of the blue, and he's like, "Hey, when you and my mom were married, you never treated us any differently than your own son. When you like read bedtime stories, you'd put all of us together and you'd read bedtime stories for all of us. You'd take Cody to go play golf or whatever, and you wouldn't just you'd bring all of us along. You'd go four-wheeling. Anytime you did something, it was with all of us kids. It wasn't just with Cody. We never felt like we were the other kids. We always felt like we were just the kids." So he said, he's like, "Hey, this is what happened. Would you mind if you and I kind of need like a father figure in my life. Would you mind if we start hanging out a little more often?" And, just kind of started hanging out more and more and more and more. And, finally, he's like, "Hey, he's like, I know this sounds weird, but would it be cool if I started calling you Dad?" And I'm not gonna lie, I started bawling like an 18-year-old girl that just got selected as prom queen. And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely," and it kind of kept progressing from there, to the point that I actually made a video where I was missing his biological father. And I told him, I was like, "You know what? I'm getting ready to go in and watch Max graduate high school. This is something you're never going to see, because you couldn't see past your own intolerance, your own bigotry, your own ignorance. All of the good things in Max's life from here on out, you're never going to get to see them. All of the times when he trips, when he stumbles, when he's having a hard time, I'm going to be the one there to take care of him, to help lift him up, to put him back on his feet, to dust off his shoulders." And then probably that week, I took Max out in the truck with me. I had a run out to Salt Lake City, and he'd never been out west, so I just wanted to show him like Wyoming, Utah, some of the scenery, stuff like that. And that's when we had pulled over at the end of the day, and he's like, I was wondering if you would consider like adopting me. He's like, "I know I'm over 18, so it doesn't really mean much for anything else." He's like, "But to be able to tell people, legally that you're my dad, that would mean a lot." And I'm not going to lie, I kind of went back to, like, I got the big smile on my face and everything else. And then and I'm 6 feet tall. I'm a Marine Corps veteran, truck driver. born and bred in the Midwest, and I can probably count on one, maybe two hands the number of times I have just bawled my eyes out, and that was one of those times. And that was, for me, that was just one of the coolest moments of my life. That, and being a dad is probably like graduating high school, graduating Marine Corps boot camp, awards, stuff like that. Being a dad is quite possibly just one of the coolest things for me that I've ever done. And for someone his age and to recognize and want to be in that universe, want me to be part of his universe, just was quite possibly one of the. Yeah. Then after I typed in that title, then I found out Trump was indicted. I'm like, oh well, shit. Let's talk about a twofer.
Yeah, and then like I said, man, when I saw the title, and then you started talking about it on the live stream, and that's when I started interacting with you, and this is when I wanted to. That's why I said, look, let me start looking into the liberal trucker, because I put my comment in, and I didn't know how you were until we met. He's gonna see the Cajun Conservative. Oh Lord, look, a conservative's come and say something about this, but I simply just said congratulations on the adoption, and you start talking about truck and stuff, and I knew about it because I started putting in there, and you made a comment. You said, look, see some conservative like this, I like talking to him because we can have a conversation. And that point I said, look, I need to get with Leroy because I think this will be a good conversation to have on a podcast.
And that's, and you and I both kind of hit on that. I actually enjoy, when I do my TikTok lives and stuff like that, I enjoy talking to conservatives that I can have a conversation with, because there are liberals that I can't have conversations with, because not every single thing. I lean mostly left. There are some, like the death penalty. I'm pretty conservative on the death penalty. Some punishments, I'm pretty conservative on that. I do like making sure, like, budgets are fiscally sound. You and I, before we were talking about the Second Amendment. I do support the Second Amendment, but I do support restrictions on it. It's like saying, I agree with speed limits on the highway and on the interstate. Just because I agree with sensible legislation to make driving safer doesn't mean I'm anti-driving or anti-car. It just, I love driving. I just want to make sure that it's as safe as possible for everyone that does it.
Yeah, and look, I agree with you on that. There's some conservatives I don't like to talk to because I always use it. And look, this is my softball background. I play slow pitch softball. If you're looking at left field, there's people that go so much left that they're hitting the foul line, they're going over, and the same thing with the right. In our preps, we mentioned Marjorie Taylor Greene and Cory Booker. Some of the most. I tell people on this platform, I don't always agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene. I bet you don't always agree with Cory Booker. I've made waves when I told people I don't support Trump running in 2024. A lot of people, all the conservatives, like, oh, you don't like Trump. It's not that I don't like Trump. There's some principles I hold on to that he has proven to me I disagree with. Now, you probably be totally opposite. If it came down to Trump and Biden, me as a conservative, I'll vote for Trump. And it just, but there's sometimes like us, okay, like we're sitting down right here. We're not bashing each other. I'm not interrupting you. You're not interrupting me. And I think this is why I had a connection with you on that TikTok live. I was like, wow, he is not saying bad things because he sees the Cajun Conservative. He sees a person, and that we had some already in common, trucking, and we just hit it off real well.
And that's, like I said, like when I do my TikTok lives, I like having conversation, because there are not a ton of things, but there are a few things when I've kind of like looked at it and like, well, maybe I can think about this in a different light. But no, if somebody comes into one of my lives and the first comment is, Trump 2024, or liberalism is a mental disorder, people come in, I know they're not looking to have a conversation. I know they're just looking to come in, say something stupid, get my attention, and then take off. So, like I said, when somebody comes in, and literally, like, the first question they ask is, what made you liberal? What's happened in your life? Why are you liberal instead of conservative? What have the liberals done that you agree with? That's when I know they're wanting to have a conversation, and they may not agree with my answer, but they still want to have that conversation, and that's what I enjoy.
Yeah, it is fun. Look, I'm enjoying this conversation, and I know we haven't got into policies or political stuff yet, but at the same time, I'm enjoying this conversation because I'm an open-minded person. Will I become liberal at the end of this podcast? Probably not. But at the same time, I don't think you're going to become conservative at the end of this conversation either. But at the same time, we came to the table. Shoot, we're doing better than the House Speaker and the President right now that can't even negotiate on a debt ceiling.
Yeah, it's and as a veteran, as anybody that relies on Medicare, Medicaid, the VA. I mean, as much as I hate to say it, that's the core conservative demographic right there. And they're how can you? That would literally be like saying I'm running as a liberal, and I plan on getting rid of marijuana, patchouli oil, and kale. I mean, like, right. You're alienating your core demographic. And as much as I say this, conservatives can't really alienate too many more people, because in the last election, Gen Z voted 77% Democrat in the last election. And in 2024 and 2026, they are going to be the largest voting bloc by a lot. I mean, like, gerrymandering may not even overcome the difference if enough of them get out to the polls. So with most of them, they've already alienated Gen Z. They've alienated quite a few of the millennials. And now they're alienating recipients of Medicare, Medicaid, and VA services. I mean, like I said, they're pretty much alienating everyone except for upper middle class white people, younger people at this point.
Yeah.
And I just, like, you've got to wonder what their game plan is.
Well, and look, this is on the point with the VA and the medical system. A majority of Republicans don't want to cut the VA. They don't want to cut Social Security. They don't want to cut a lot of this. And this is one of my problems with President Biden's State of the Union address, because he made it, y'all want to cut Social Security. That was done by one or two Republicans. Majority of those Republicans, however, think hey, we need to keep that. The whole issue with TikTok. And look, you and I, we're TikTokers. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Rumble. I'm on almost every social media platform. You want to take out TikTok, and I understand there might be some security concerns, but like the CEO of TikTok said, what about the other social media platforms that are in the United States? If you got to go with that with TikTok, you got to go with that with Facebook, Twitter, True Social. It don't matter who.
Oh yeah.
And that's where, and like some of the Republicans saying, hold on, you're gonna take. I think there's like 125 million people on TikTok, and half of them are paid. Well, majority, a lot of them are paid people from TikTok. You're taking away their income. Now, and see, I'm surprised liberals and Democrats have got on that bandwagon, and I see hypocrisy in that though too. Because when Trump was saying, hey, let's ban it, they were like, nope. Now Biden says, they're like, oh, let's go ahead and let's have this conversation of banning TikTok all of a sudden. So and
that's one of the things. Like neither side. If the TikTok hearing wasn't one of the most embarrassing moments as American citizens, some of the questions that, why is it every time I open TikTok, I see nothing but half naked girls dancing, and I see all them little pretty fancy boys just doing their dances. Dude, you have no idea how algorithms work. Yep. Congratulations. You just told the entire American population that's what you look for when you go on TikTok. Does TikTok, does it access my home Wi-Fi? Yeah, how do you think the internet works, genius? I mean, they literally, at one point, I was literally waiting for the CEO of TikTok to just stand up and be like, you know what? When you get some smarter people in this room, I'll be happy to answer questions. Until then, I could be having a conversation with fifth graders and it'd be just as productive.
Yeah, and they look in both sides of the aisle. We're agreeing on this. Both sides of the aisle did not go into that hearing saying, "Oh, let's see what he can say." They wanted that 15-second soundbite on CNN and on Fox News. That's all they wanted. And look, I'm gonna give props to the TikTok CEO. I can't think of his name at the moment, but he brought Democrats and Republicans together for the first time in a long while.
Oh yeah.
And it just, going back to the voting thing though, and I look at this, I always say this, some people are going to become more conservative as they grow older. Because, especially college kids. And look, Leroy, I think you said on your TikTok you're around 40-some years old?
Yeah, 44.
And so I'm 30. So I'm a little behind you. But, if you go looking at a lot of college students, and look, liberalism is being taught in colleges. That's one of the main forms of, a lot of professors are liberals. But if you see a lot of these young college kids, oh, they want free checks, they want this, they want that, they want everything until they get a job and they have to live on a budget. Then all of a sudden they're like, wait, there might be something to conservatism after all, and a lot of their views change. And look, I'm gonna be honest with you as well on this point. Conservatives are not doing a good job reaching the young people. They're not. And this is why I wanted to this is why I did this, is because I want young people to get conservatives, be conservatives, but I know they're not turning to the radio. They're going to podcasting, they're going to YouTube, TikTok and everything. That's what I'm focused on. This is trying to reach young people, but conservatives are not trying to reach young people. They're trying to reach older folk.
And I will say, I don't necessarily think that liberalism itself is being taught in colleges. I think what kind of ends up happening, because I was born and raised in small town Missouri. I don't know if anybody wants to find a map and find New Haven, Missouri. This was a town, like my high school class had 25 people in it, grand total. That's how we had a town of, I think, maybe 800 people with like 8 churches. I mean, we were a pretty conservative area. So everyone kind of grows up in that small town, they only know their small circle. Well, when they go off to college, when they go up to the military, when they move to a bigger city, something like that, they realize it's not just white, middle of the road, middle class people that live in this country. They understand, they find out that there's gay, there's straight, there's pansexual, there's cisgender, there's black, there's Asian, there's Mexican. They get a dose of everyone. And I'll be the first one to admit, when growing up I had never met a person in my life that was gay or openly gay until I joined the Marine Corps. I was stationed in San Diego, and I made friends with someone, and I didn't even know he was gay. For like 2 months, we hung out. Never knew. And it wasn't until he kind of like he literally just came out one time like, hey, let's go to I don't know if anybody knows where Hillcrest is in San Diego. It's kind of like the San Francisco of San Diego. And he's like, hey, we always hang out at the clubs you want to hang out. Do you mind if we hang out at one of my clubs? I'm like, sure, yeah, let's, dude, I'm sorry. Yeah, let's, this area better than I do anyway. You live here. I'm just stationed here. And all of a sudden we went down to Hillcrest, San Diego, and there's like a big rainbow across the main road that says Hillcrest. And like, I can remember the first store off to the right was Gay Mart instead of Kmart. And I'm just like looking around, and like, I'm an 18-year-old kid from middle of nowhere, Missouri. And we go into this bar, and I'm just like sitting and I'm hanging out. And like all of a sudden I look over to my side, and there's 2 women making out next to me. And I was like, dude, this place rocks. I love this place. And then like, I look over and there's like 2 guys making out next to me. I'm like, whoa, no, this place rocks infinitely less now. And like, I look out and there's like men dancing with men, women dancing with women. And I went up and talked to him. I'm like, dude, I was like, I think we're at a gay bar. And he kind of looked at me like, yeah, no kidding. And I'm like, dude, why are we at a gay bar? And he looked at me, he's like, you really haven't put two and two together yet, have you?
Uh-oh.
And I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? And that's when he came out to me, and that's when it all just clicked. And, growing up in small town Missouri, I was always taught that, the gays were going to kidnap your kids and they were going to take them to their weird gay sex cult orgies. And, they were going to do all these terrible things, and they're just degenerate human beings. And I looked around, and they were just like anyone else to me. He wasn't mean. He wasn't ignorant. He wasn't hateful. They weren't sacrificing a goat up on the stage or anything else like that. They were normal people. They lived their lives like anyone else did. And I think that's kind of what happens when, some of these kids leave their small towns and they go to college, they go to the big town, they go to the military, is that they realize there are different people. And now some people, they'll pull more into their shell. Oh, no, I don't want any part of it. I don't want to see any part of this. This is wrong. This is unholy. This is just, no, I can't do this. And then there are some people that, like, wow, okay, this guy is just like my cousin Jeff, except, he likes guys instead of Jeff. Jeff used to, work on his hot rods and, go out, driving the tractor, and, he'd go hang out with Betty Lou Sue at the end of the day. Now he's hanging out with Craig at the end of the day, but other than that, he's just like everyone else I knew. And I think something like that really kind of helps people understand. So anyway, like, getting back on track, like, I think like I said, I don't think liberalism is taught. I think it's just something that kind of happens when people get away from the area they grew up in. Even if you grew up in, like, the subdivision of a major city, it's easy to just live in that little bubble. And once you get away from that, you can kind of see how the other side lives. So I've seen how conservatives live. Like I said, don't get me wrong, I loved growing up in a small conservative town. I genuinely did, because if somebody was having a problem, everybody knew that person was having a problem, and everybody pitched in to help. I'm an atheist, but we very devoutly church going when I was younger. And some of my happiest memories are, we'd go to church on Sunday, come home, change out of our church clothes. We'd all go back to the church, and they, the potato salads and barbecue and green bean casseroles and stuff like that. All the kids were out playing, all the grown-ups were talking. And I think one of the big things that changed was, especially in the face of religion, rather than it being a conversation about love, about helping one another, about loving one another, it became a conversation about who you're supposed to hate, who you're not supposed to trust, who you're supposed to dislike. You're not a true Christian if you do this, this, or this. I think if the church, in any church, because my wife is Presbyterian, and I absolutely love going to her church. Even as an atheist, I love going to her church because it is a conversation. It's not a. I don't know the best way to explain it. It's not a conversation about what you shouldn't do. It's a conversation about what you can do to walk the walk, essentially. Okay. And so I think that's. I kind of think that's how the liberalism kind of comes about, and when people go off to college and join the military and go to the big city and stuff like that. Like I said, I don't think it's taught. I think it's just something that kind of happens naturally from the environment.
So I honestly think it is taught, because, like I said, you have a lot of liberal, because it happens in conservative colleges as well. If you have a belief, you go ahead and you teach what you believe in or what the textbook tells you to. And because on the point of your story when you first found out there was gay people. Okay, my parents, they sheltered us. I didn't say shelter. They went ahead and they watched over us. Let's say it like this. But they let us know, there's some people that live that way. Now, you're an atheist. I'm a Bible believing Christian, and I believe this on this point with the issue with this being taught. I believe it's being taught, and a lot of Christians or a lot of people that come out of these old towns, either they're not strong in their faith or they're not strong in their beliefs, and they're still trying to find themselves. So they kind of push it towards that way. When I say it was taught on the gay issue, I don't believe homosexuality is right. I as a Bible believing Christian, and when I believe in the Bible, it's not right. But this is my different approach to that argument. I've had friends play on my softball team that were part of the LGBTQ community. And I even talked to a few of them about my faith. And they always told me, they said, Isaac, we respect you more because you know our lifestyle and we know you disagree with it. But at the same time, you still treat us as a human being. And I think that's the point where a lot of conservatives can learn. And that's what's bad about when you hear on Fox News and Newsmax and all that, where they talk about homosexuality, and I do too. I have my views on the transgender community, and I express my views on this platform. But at the same time, if there's a person that comes to me, I'm going to treat them as a human being. Because let's use, for example, we talked about Max earlier. How would it looked about me if I would have came on that on your live stream and just started hammering that? Max is part of the LGBTQ community. I disagree with it, but at the same time, Max is still a human being. I'm not going to go ahead and degrade him. Now, I can let him know my opinion, but I'm going to do it respectfully, as you're doing here, and we're talking over today. And I think that's what's missing is respect.
And absolutely. And here's the thing, like my dad. I mean, growing up in small, my dad was fairly left-leaning, with the exception of gays. My dad used to say, I mean, straight up, that the only good F word, is hanging from a tree. I mean, he was violently anti-gay. And then, like, my cousin Tristan came out as gay. My cousin Dylan came out as gay. I've had nieces, nephews, close family, and my dad really had to sit back and ask himself, is my hatred stronger than my love for my grandkids? And my dad will still tell you, and this is the point that I definitely, you can disagree with something all you want. Where you step over the line is when you vote to take rights away from those people, when you impose your beliefs. You cannot agree with the transgender community, but and like I said, that's absolutely fine, because even my dad has told Max, I don't understand it, I don't agree with it, but it doesn't bother me. It doesn't affect me in the least. And that is where, like I said, you cannot agree with the gay community, with the transgender community, anything else. But when you vote to make them detransition, that's where you step over a line. When you vote to keep them from getting married, that's where you've stepped over a line. And for like the conservatives, I mean, and I did a video about this. I mean, for the most part, conservatives are the big, if I'm not doing nothing, if I'm not hurting anybody, the government needs to stay out of my business. I'm not affecting anybody. The government needs to leave me alone. That's a great standpoint. That legitimately is. If you want to buy 100 acres of land and put, 200 cars that don't run on that land, and, you want to live off the grid and just have solar panels on your house and collect rainwater and grow your own crops and raise your own meat and shit like that. I personally think it's absolutely nonsense that the government has as many regulations on doing that as what they do. You're collecting rainwater. You're not hurting anybody but yourself. Using solar panels, you're literally not affecting anyone else. with the LGBTQ plus community. They're not showing up to your door on a Sunday afternoon, trying to come into your house and say, hey, let's talk about our Lord and Savior, Sharon Madonna. It's literally all they want is to be able to live their lives in a manner that it is conducive for them. They're not going and trying to recruit or anything. So for me, it takes someone with dump truck requiring testicles to say, I want to be left alone because I'm not bothering anyone, but I'm going to harass these people who aren't bothering anyone because I don't agree with them. And that's kind of my big thing. Like I say, you can sit here and say, I don't agree with it all you want, and that's perfectly fine. There's a lot of things I don't agree with. Like I said, I'm an atheist. And if the government said we're going to make religion illegal tomorrow, I'll be the first one in line out marching with you guys. Because I don't think something should be taken from someone if it isn't hurting anyone else.
And on that point too, because what you mentioned, I've went door to door and talked to people, but I'm not one that says, all right, when they knock on the door and they tell me no, thank you, I'm not going to try to continue my opinion or my belief, my Christian belief on that person. If I come knock on your door, you tell me, Isaac, I'm sorry, I don't want it. You have a good day. And it's the same thing. Okay, if somebody from the LGBTQ community tries to get me to go that way, I would tell them I disagree with you, and I agree with you. If they keep on saying, well, no, you have to believe, and they start trying to no, hold on. That's a point. Because I believe in free speech. I believe in making protesting. You mentioned that. I agree with all that. Now, when it comes to the LGBT with marriage and stuff, we have a different opinion on that. But I'm looking at it at a biblical view because I'm a Bible-believing Christian, and that I believe in marriage between a man and a woman. That is my biblical belief. Now, at the same time, though, I do agree with you on that. I'm not going to go downtown with a sign and say hateful things to that part of the community. Because I honestly believe if I witness to somebody and they come over to my faith, well, they're going to do it on their own terms. Now, I'm not going to hold no punches on, look, this is what I believe. This is what the Bible says. But that person still has a choice as well. You have a choice, Leroy. I have a choice and all that. And I agree with you on that. You're not going to force nobody to do anything they don't want to do to begin with. And that's where I come to the point with the LGBTQ community. Look, if you want to be transgender, you have every right to be. Taking their rights away, I would like, if you don't mind me asking, how do you feel they've been taking their rights away? Because if you're over 18, you have the rights of an American. And if your rights are stolen, please come talk to me because, and we're probably going to talk about the Second Amendment a little later on, but I personally believe that my right as an American to have the Second Amendment, I believe that some of the people in the government are trying to take that away. I honestly do. But at the same time, like you just said, if they try to take away religion, well, guess what? I'm glad you're going to be in the picket line with me. And it's the same way. If they try to take any constitutional right away, I'm a constitutionalist. I will stand with you because every American has the constitutional right to do what they need to do. And like I said, we're going to talk more about it, but I'd like to ask you that. What do you think the politicians are trying to take away LGBT rights in a way for conservatism or politicians in general?
Well, it's for me, I don't believe that the Constitution only applies to people that are only over 18 years old.
No.
There are certain things in the Constitution that have age restrictions, i.e. the Second Amendment, but freedom of speech, freedom of expression. The big rallying cry is, all of these kids are having their genitals, mangled by doctors. There are probably less than 0.01% of transgender youth under 18 that are getting gender reassignment surgery because most doctors won't do it. Most of them, they're doing hormone blockers, puberty blockers, stuff like that. If it's a male that wants to transition to a female, or like in Max's case, female transitioning to male, they're doing like puberty and hormone blockers that can be reversible later on in life if they decide that this isn't what they want. Down in Florida, they can literally take your kid away from you if they find out that you're letting your child transition. One of the big conservative points, especially when it comes to like education, well, we should have a say in what our kids learn. We should have a say in what our kids are taught in schools. We should be the final authority with our kids. Why does that apply to one thing and not the other? And in becoming transgender isn't something that somebody decides on the fly. They don't just wake up on a Tuesday one day and say, you know what, I feel like a girl today, or I feel like a boy today. This is something that generally takes a lot of thought, a lot of time, a lot of introspection for someone to come to that realization. And for the state of Florida, the state of Tennessee, I believe North Carolina has something on the books, or is trying to put something on the books. The state of Missouri, thankfully, we just got a snitch registry in the state of Missouri taken down from the Attorney General's office. The state of Oklahoma, there are multiple states where they are telling kids you're not allowed to be who you truly in your heart believe you are unless you agree with what we say. We're not going to allow, like now in Tennessee, if you don't dress with the gender you were assigned with at birth, I can't remember I believe the punishment is, oh God, I was just reading about it the other day. Actually, hold on a second.
Yeah, go ahead, take it down.
Tennessee. See. Yeah, Tennessee Governor Bill Lee signs anti-trans health law. Drag restrictions. You can't dress in the state of Tennessee, you cannot dress in a way that isn't consistent with the gender you were assigned with at birth. And that literally right there, that's literally telling, and that doesn't just apply to kids, that's anyone. That's adults as well. That's literally the government telling you, we know what's good for you better than you know what's good for you, even though what you're doing doesn't affect anyone. If a man dresses up and impersonates a female, or a woman dresses up in a suit with slacks and everything else, how is that affecting anyone else? And as much as I hate to say it, there are a lot of groups, the American Civil Liberties Union, they're talking about, where does this end? If you have women that are dressing in suits and, power suits and stuff like that, and you've got lawmakers that think women should just be wearing the dresses below their knees and, stuff like that, where does that line end? Is this a bill that's just going to apply to this group of people? You've got that in Tennessee. You've got, like I said, in Florida, where if you're a parent and you are caught allowing your child to dress in a manner that is non-consistent to the gender they were assigned with at birth, your kids can be taken away from you. Now, you cannot agree with transgenderism. You cannot agree with the LGBTQ plus community. But as a conservative, like I said before, the rallying cry of conservatives is, if we're not bothering you, leave us alone. They're not bothering anybody doing what they're doing. Why is it okay to bother one group of people that isn't bothering anyone, but it's expected to leave other people alone? That's kind of my big issue right there. Like, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. It's got to be, otherwise that's hypocrisy in its final form.
I agree with you on that, because this is what I look about it, right? The law in Florida. Now, this is where I come with the point with children And I think this is why they passed this law. And it don't, like you said, so this is how I'm going to, before I say it, if you're a parent, you're the overseer of your children. Okay, and they're always going to go like this. You can't tell me what to do with my kids, and then vice versa. I can't go to your house and tell you, hey, you need to raise your kids this way, and we can't do that. That would be me restricting your right as a parent. So I can understand where they come from with that, with young kids and all. This is why I think they passed these rules, is because certain schools, and this has been proven in Daily Wires and Fox and all this stuff, where there's certain teachers that they have a child come up and say, hey, I think I'm transgender, and they want to hide it from the parents. That's wrong. That should be a parent and a child discussion, as you said. Now, I don't believe, now if you're 18, hey, I agree with you on that point. If you're telling a grown person, look, I don't agree with it. I will stand here all day. I do not agree with that lifestyle. But at the same time, I wouldn't pass legislation to say, look, you're over 18. Oh, you got to dress this certain way or you're going to jail. That's not right. I will sit here and I'm probably blowing your mind a little bit because you don't hear conservatives talk like this too much. But on the with kids, however, it's been proven in studies, the mind don't truly develop till 21, 25 years old. So you still have some kids, you know, because a little boy plays with a doll. The parents shouldn't force that little boy to become transgender. Oh, he's transgender. It's 4 years old. A little boy, a little girl don't know how to halfway speak at 4 years old. And I think that's where they're coming to the point with that right there, is parents looking at an issue like that and saying, oh, we need to go ahead, and he's transgender because he's playing with a doll. Or you have a little girl playing with a truck. Oh, they're transgender, and they start pushing that on them. That, I think, is where they're trying to regulate a little bit. But even a older child, if a child's old and said, look, I feel I'm this way, and a parent's consent, the government should not go ahead and intervene with that, because that's the parent and the child's issue. Again, for my audience that's watching this, I'm against transgenderism. I'm against. I honestly believe that. I'm not for that lifestyle. But I do agree with you on that, Leroy. You can't. The government should not force. It's the same way with, you know, if a government official, or they try to pass a bill saying, hey, churches, y'all can't preach against homosexuality. Wait a minute, that's on the same lines. Wait, you're trying to tell a church what to do, but we have freedom of religion. You can't go regulate that. That's not right in my opinion. And that's what I said. Someone that's over 18, 21, if they want to dress like Medea, hey, go ahead for it. But I don't. That's my view of it. That's right there.
Yeah, and I will say, and this is my personal opinion on this. If your child doesn't feel comfortable coming to you with something, and they would much rather go to a teacher or a principal, or, you know, something, as much as I hate to say it, there's a reason for that. If you have acted in a manner that lets your child know that you're not okay with something, if I wanted to play football, and my dad was just constant, oh, damn football players, just their brain injuries, just, you know, not, whatever. If my dad was constantly rallying against football players or the Marines, if my dad was constantly talking about how, well, no damn kid of mine's going to join the Marine Corps, no, I'm not going to come to my dad and tell him that I joined the Marine Corps. Same as if you have parents that are coming out and saying hateful, horrendous things against a group of people, against the LGBTQ plus community, of course that child isn't going to feel comfortable coming to their parents about something like that. And now I'm not saying that every single conservative is like that. But even you have to admit that anytime there have been people violently opposed to the LGBTQ plus community, they generally come from one side of the aisle. So that's kind of my big issue on that. That's why I understand why some kids would much rather come out to a teacher that they know would be more understanding to them. Why they would much rather come out to a principal or even another spiritually, a youth pastor that might be a little more understanding, a little bit more open-minded. This is where I kind of deviate from the whole, mom and dad always know best. We tend to think that just because we can have kids, that automatically makes us great parents.
No, it don't. No, it don't. I
know I've made tons of mistakes with my kids, but I do agree with not forcing your kids one way or the other. If your son is playing with your daughter's Barbies, no, you absolutely do not walk in and say, "Oh, my son is playing with Barbies. Hallelujah. Thank the Lord. I've got a transgender kid. Now I'm part of that community." No, you don't. You just let the kid play with whatever toys they want to play with. Like when I was young, I grew up with 5 sisters and no brothers. Yeah, I played with my fair share of Barbies.
And you turned out to be a Marine.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't mean that I wanted to, that I thought I was they were the most abundant toys in the house.
Right.
And more often I was playing with the Barbie Corvette or the Barbie, like I was playing with the cars. But at the same time, no, it's not okay. If you walk in and your son is playing with one of your daughter's Barbies, to lose your mind, I'll be, okay. I know I'm not supposed to curse.
A monkey's uncle.
I'm trying.
A monkey's uncle. Let's say it.
Yeah.
I'll be
darned before my boy is playing with some damn girl's toy.
Right.
No, I mean, that's just as detrimental as let kids be kids. And to say that kids don't really know what they want, I don't know about anybody else. I knew I was attracted to girls by the 2nd grade. I didn't know what it was about them, but I knew that I liked seeing them.
Right.
So I think and yes, I understand that, the brain isn't fully developed until, I think it's like 26 years old. But yeah, I understand the brain isn't fully developed, but there are some things that I do believe or you at least have an inkling towards. Like I said, I knew that I was attracted to girls, like I said, but like the 2nd, maybe 3rd grade. I mean, I liked hanging out with boys. I like riding bikes and playing Nintendo, like the original NES system. That kind of gives away my age.
No offense on that. Super Nintendo was my first system, so hey.
Yeah, actually, my first system was an Atari 2600. Oh my god. Yeah. But anyway, like I said, like going down to the creek, catching crawdads, riding by. I know I liked hanging out with boys by the 2nd grade, 3rd grade, but I knew that girls did something to me or for me when I was in like 2nd or 3rd. So I think kids have a good idea of who they are at younger ages. It's only when we try to stomp something out of them. I'm a firm believer no parent should ever be their child's first bully.
I agree with you on that. They need to be taught and disciplined. That I think. Oh, yeah. But at the same time, yeah, I like my kids, I'm their daddy first, but at the same time, I'm not gonna go ahead and bully my children into, using sports for example. If my son likes baseball and I like football, I'm not gonna, hey, you have to play football.
Only pansies play baseball.
Yeah, which I play softball. It's not a pansy sport. I'm just saying. But on
you're better than I am. I have no hand-eye coordination. I can't even, I play golf and I do it very poorly.
Well, I play guitar and everything too, so I got a lot of look. If you look at my studio, I got all kind of buttons. No, but on this note though, with the parents though, with school, I understand your point on some kids might be comfortable going to someone else. But there is a difference with going and confining in them to try to hey, how can I tell my parents? And then a teacher saying, oh, I'm glad you came to me. Let's go to the nearest hospital and get you puberty blockers.
Yeah, no. I don't agree with that.
That's a big difference with that, because and I think that's the issue we're having right now. Because we have a lot, especially in California, we're hearing a lot of reports of that coming out, where you have teachers that kids confine in them 3-4 months down the line. The parents start noticing something. When they find out it was the teacher, that's where I think a lot of this ruckus is coming about at, is because these teachers are trying to be parents when they shouldn't get involved. Now, because we can talk about other those abuse and other things of that nature. Yeah, go to a teacher. Hey, there's laws, there's process to go through that too. You go to the law. You go to at the end of the day, it ends up with the parents. But, I'm not going to lie to you. If my son's doing something 3 or 4 months and I find out he was encouraged by another adult, I'm going to confront that adult. And that's where I think a lot of this is going to play. Because we have to look out for the kids. Because even 2nd, 3rd grade, some kids, they'll believe anything. If you tell them that the sky's red and it's blue, they believe it's red.
Yeah, and like I said, for me, it's a real gray area, because like I said, I see your point on that too. But I mean, for me, if a child truly believes and knows that they are who they are, and their parents, they go to their parents, let's say they go to their parents first. Hey, Dad, I know that I look like Chris. I know on the outside I look like Chris, but this isn't who I am. I'm miserable like this. I wake up every day, I look in the mirror, and I hate what I see. And that dad and mom just, you continue with this, you're out of our house, you're not our kid anymore. I mean, that is one of the big contributors to these kids taking their own lives, is the fact that they do go to their parents. And their parents, rather than understanding that your kids are going to be, your kids are going to be their own person, they instantly shut down and, if my kid's not a carbon copy of me when I was their age, I don't want it. And that's what, no, I mean, you need to understand that kids, to an extent, like, if your kids are into like beating up other kids and setting cats on fire and, dropping M80s into people's mailboxes, you need to stop that shit. But if your kids are literally doing something that isn't hurting anybody else, this is where I don't understand. Like, how can you have a child and claim that you're going to love that child any less? Or you would much rather take the chance of your child taking their own life because they're utterly miserable, than to maybe look into changing your views a little bit, or flexing on your views a little bit. But, at 30 years old, I'm assuming you have kids.
Yes.
And if one, and you don't support the transgender individuals, or transgenderism, if one of your kids came to you and it said, hey, Dad, this is what's going on. That's where, especially as a parent, you need to stop and say, is my distaste for this community worth potentially losing my child forever?
So on that note, though, so if one of my kids would come do that, I would tell them that I'm not happy with their decision. But at the same time, I wouldn't be a parent that would go ahead and start bawling and start yelling and start I would show them why I believe that way. Now, when this is a fear of a parent. You're a parent as well. What they're gonna do after they leave out of my house? Because after they leave out the house, that is their decision. It's the same thing with the decision of, my kids following in my faith. Look, I pray every day, Lord, let them be in the faith. But at the end of the day, that is their decision to stay in Christ or go somewhere else. And that's their decision. But I would go ahead and I'll make my point with it. Now, there's some things I would draw the line at. But at the same time, I would tell my kids, you're living in that state, but I will still love you. And I think that's where a lot of people have the problems with, if my kids do that, I'm gonna disown them. No, I will pull off to a Christian standpoint with this, Leroy. And in that point, Christ died on a cross for me while in my sin, the book of Romans says. So if Christ can come down from heaven while we were still sinners and die on a cross to forgive us of our sins, how much more should we go ahead and say, look, you're living a horrible lifestyle, in my opinion, or you're living a lifestyle I disagree with, but I'm going to love you. But I don't have to agree, I don't agree with your lifestyle, but I will still love you as my child. And like I said, at the age of 18, they can do whatever they want after that. But I would sit down, because that is a good question. I don't think a lot of Christians or a lot of conservatives think about that answer, which I have thought about that answer already. And that's where I would sit down. Look, this is why I believe this way. You have to make that decision. And if you're under 18, look, don't do it in my house. That'll be my personal plea to them. And after they leave out of my house, I can't tell them what to do. But that instant right there, I'll show them the Bible and I'll say, look, this is why, and we'll talk over the issue. And I'll spend some time with them, because it won't be, you're not I'm not going to talk to you about that issue. You're a boy and just leave it like that. That's the wrong approach to have it.
And unfortunately, there are a lot of parents that do take that approach.
I agree with you.
Max, my son Max is a prime example of that. His father literally, I say father, his biological dad basically told him, if you continue down this path, you do this, you're no longer my child. And that is all too common of a story. I think one of the proudest moments for me was the fact that Max came out to me with no hesitation. Like, he didn't hey, Leroy, I got to talk to you about something. I'm not sure how you're going to react to it. I don't want you to get mad. I don't want you to love me any less. Or he straight up came out and he's like, I want you to know I'm not Lorelai anymore. That's my dad. I am going by Max now. This is, who I am and everything else. I'm like, cool. You want to go get some ice cream? I mean, it wasn't like a huge production. It wasn't like when my nephew Tristan came out as gay. It wasn't like it like my whole family was really kind of understanding on, like, when my nephew Tristan came out, he was, he told us and we're like, yeah, we already knew. Well, wait, what? Yeah, dude, we already knew. It's cool. Well, I had this big speech I had planned. Okay, say your speech. Do what you need to do to get this out. But you're not changing anyone's mind. We were already there. We were just waiting for you to catch up. Like I said, and I know that not everyone's going to be that open-minded about it. No, I 100% accept that. And like I said before, you don't, even like my dad. My dad straight up said, he's like, look, I don't support this. I don't agree with it. But if you're happy, it's not my place to take that happiness away from you. And for me, like I said, that's like the big point to me. You can not agree with something all you want. Absolutely. Like I said, there are multiple things I don't agree with. But that's where it stops. It stops at, I don't agree with it. I don't try to stop those people from doing it. I don't try to pass legislation to keep them from doing it. I don't get in their face. And I mean, like I said, unless you're like legitimately a bad person. I don't get in your face and like, oh, you're a shitty human being and and you're gonna I can't say burn in hell, but like, oh, this is gonna happen to you, that's gonna happen to you. I literally, it's one of those things to where I don't understand how someone's hate can be stronger than the love of their children of all people. And that's what blows my mind right there.
Yeah, and look, like I said, there is some people that will say that. And they will go ahead and they'll be like, look, they told us this. Well, guess what? I'm not gonna love them at all. I'm not gonna. No, that's not the right approach to that. Not by a long shot. But like I said, if you disagree with me, I think you should tell the kid, hey, I disagree with you, but do it in a loving and understanding way. And I think that's where we have a lot of issues going on. And look, I know we're about to wrap up, but it's and look, we could talk. Man, I think we could do a whole week of interviews with this, but I think this is an issue, and I'm glad we sat down and talked about this. At least some people could hear this and understand.
We haven't touched on the Second Amendment, police brutality, college tuition, labor unions. There's a ton of stuff we haven't touched on.
But I want to ask you a question before we wrap up, though, Leroy.
Okay.
And look, I don't know if this shifts your view on some conservatives, not all conservatives, but because like I said, I hear you channel and sometimes you're like, oh, these conservatives, this, and I do the same thing. The liberals, they do this, and this. But did this go like how I'm gonna explain it at the end as well, but how this interview put your view towards conservatives has it changed a light, or has it that we're willing to, that I was willing to come on and talk with you?
And that's it. I still kind of take it on a case by case basis.
Okay.
Like I spent a lot of time growing up around mechanics. So I have a general, if somebody tells me they're a mechanic, I have a general idea of what they're probably going to be like. Now, if I meet one that's different, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. And for me, there's a huge difference between like Republican, conservative, and Trumpers. Like I've got multiple friends that are Republicans. I can have great conversations with people who are just conservatives. Generally, the people that are like the diehard Donald Trump fans, and coming from someone on the left, I look at the people who are diehard Trump supporters like people who are diehard Bernie Sanders supporters. Like for me, like I don't like either one of them, and I'm on the left, and I can't stand most of like the Bernie or bust or people like that, because they cannot fathom how other people don't think like them. Like the Bernie Sanders straight up came out and said, look, the math isn't there. I don't have the numbers. There's no way that I can win this. I'm going to drop out. I want you to give your support to whomever. Oh, I'm not doing that. The election was stolen from him. I'm not even going to vote. I'm going to cast my vote for Mickey Mouse or whatever. You're an idiot then.
Yep.
Because
I agree with you.
Yeah, voting isn't an Uber that takes you right to your front door. Voting is a city bus that kind of gets everybody close to where they need to be. That's where your local governments, your city, your county, your state governments, those are the Uber drivers that take you directly to where you want to be. But as far as like president, Senate, congressmen, stuff like that, that's, like I said, that's more of like a big generalized. And that's the Bernie Sanders supporters and the Trump supporters, like the diehards. And I'm not talking about someone that just casually like, yeah, I voted for Trump. I'm talking about the people that have like the 4 flags on the back of their truck and the Donald Trump tattoo on their arm, and the big stickers all over their truck and shit like that. These are people that cannot comprehend that people don't think the way they think. And like I said, it's just as bad on both sides. So that is where, yeah, absolutely. I'm more than happy to have conversations with like the John McCain Republicans, the Liz Cheney conservatives, but like the way off and right field conservative. When I say those conservatives, those are generally the people that I'm talking about. Kind of like when women say we have to be worried about men as rapists. I'm not a rapist. I know they're not talking about me,
right?
So I'm not offended. Usually it's when women say something like that, and you've got a guy that gets really defensive all of a sudden. Search that dude's browser history, because I guarantee you're going to find some creepy shit in there. And it's the same as like when you guys when the right talks about all these dipshit kale salad eating patchouli oil hookah smoking liberals. I don't fall into any of those categories, right. So I'm not that like that. I'm mostly left leaning, mostly because of my social issues, like we were talking about. On economic issues, military issues, stuff like I am fairly conservative still on a lot of issues. But it's social issues for me that pull me to the left. So I and that's like I said in my lives, I enjoy having conservatives in my lives that want to come in and talk about issues. Now, no, like I said, if somebody comes in and like Trump 2024 or liberalism's a mental disorder. No, sorry, you're gone. That you don't want to have a conversation at that point. Like I said, you want to say some inflammatory, ignorant shit and be done with it. Get your 30 seconds of attention. But like with you, like I said, that's one of the reasons I enjoyed having a conversation, is because we had a conversation.
And I feel the same way on your part, with your point right there. Because look, a lot of my interactions with liberals have been bad. And the reason is because of the TikTok, the YouTube videos, and all that. I understand that. But at the same time, I enjoy hanging out with somebody that I can have a conversation. Because look, we were respectful of this interview.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't go ahead and... I think if they had more stuff like this on Fox News and CNN... See, I'm just not pulling out CNN. I'm pulling out Fox News because I hate it when I see Sean Hannity or Tucker Carlson interrupt a guest. And when you turn on CNN, Don Lemon's doing the exact same thing to a conservative. That aggravates me because, like you, okay, how rude would that have been if I invited you and I just cut you off every chance I got?
Oh, yeah, and I just shut the camera off after about 30 seconds.
Right. But at the same time, I enjoy having, because like I said, you are a liberal that I can go ahead and sit down and have a conversation with. Like at the end of the day, I don't think I changed your mind. You haven't changed my mind. But guess what? We respect our point of views. And I look at liberals different now. And like you said, when I talk about liberals on my program, it's not people like you. It is people that go to the extreme left. And I honestly think if they had more simple-minded people like you and I running this country instead of lawyers, doctors, and politicians, we might get something done in this nation.
Well, I think the art of compromise is dead. One of my favorite sayings is if two people go to a negotiating table or 200 people go to a negotiating table and anybody leaves happy, that wasn't a negotiation.
No.
So I think that, and like I said, on social issues, like we talked about earlier, social issues are a non-starter for me. If you want to say, oh, well, I'll give you this, but the gays or the blacks or the Jews or whatever, they're going to have to lose some rights in order to do this. No, dude, no. Pick something else. That's a non-starter for me. But if you want to say the marijuana legalization, that's a great hot topic in this country right now. It has most Americans support it. But let's say there's someone that says, hey, I'm 100% against it. I don't think it should be legal. Anything else? Okay, you're all the way over out here, and then you've got the other person that thinks they should be able to buy marijuana out of vending machines at your local truck stop.
Right.
Well, you know what? No, we need like specific shops that we can purchase marijuana at. You can't just buy it at a vending machine.
Well,
okay, then. We had, like I said, both sides can come to an agreement, but it's when either side is like, no, I'm not budging from my point at all because I want my talking point on C-SPAN or something like that. Like I said, and people think that compromising is somehow a weakness. If you can compromise and come up with a deal that benefits the vast majority of people, that's a win. Like that takes brain power to do that. That takes intelligence to figure out how to do something like that.
Well, and I'm gonna use two examples, and one would be Ronald Reagan. A lot of people, I saw a documentary on him the other day. Ronald Reagan was a great negotiator. He started with extreme, but by the time he got to his point, he got a lot of what he wanted, but he gave a little, and he took what he could get. Same thing with Bill Clinton. How did Bill Clinton work with a Republican-controlled Senate and House? Bill Clinton understood, and look, I'm not trying to mock the president of the United States, but like Joe Biden saying, I'm not going to negotiate with House Speaker. Well, the House Speaker don't look bad. It's you that look bad now because you're saying you don't want to negotiate. But Bill Clinton did that. When Bill Clinton lost the House and Senate, you know what he did? He went to Newt Gingrich and said, hey, what can we do to get this better? Republicans didn't get everything. The Democrats didn't get everything. But, hey, we made it through the Clinton years, which surprisingly happened, but...
God, I'm not going to lie. I seriously miss the biggest controversy coming out of the White House being whether or not the president got head from a chubby intern. Like, that's the biggest controversy out of the Clinton era. Can we please go back to that?
Yeah.
And if you remember, I don't know if you were alive during that or really.
I was.
At 30, you probably weren't.
He was president when I was born. He just got into office when I was born.
But I can remember that was the most terrible thing any president could have ever done. Like, it was such a stain on the president. It was so disrespectful to the office of president. If the same people that would have been alive for the last, hell, I'll go 8 years.
Oh, their hair would be
with Obama's drone strike program, through the Trump years. And through like some of the stuff that even Joe Biden is doing, right? They would have lost their minds.
Well, look at the Hunter Biden laptop scandal that's going on right now. They would. Oh man, I tell you one thing. I think we both could agree with this. Rush Limbaugh, I believe, was taken way before his time. But man, Rush Limbaugh would have had a field day on this thing. Also, Dan Rather and every other liberal, a liberal commentator too as well.
My biggest thing is Republicans have control of Congress right now, of the House of Representatives. They can bring forth any investigation they want to. If Hunter Biden's laptop is such a big deal, why haven't they've had what, 3-4 months control?
But they're looking at it now. They're looking at Fox News came out, and look, on that note, I'll tell everybody that I have CNN Politics, I have New York Times, I got Fox, I got Daily Wire, and they're looking into something with Blinken going on right now. Blinken covered up some stuff and I'm looking into it. That's probably going to be, at the time we saying the next episode, but that's going to be because this is a bonus episode. It's probably gonna be after that one, but and I know we, man, there's so much we could talk about on that because this is what aggravates me. Because I'm gonna use, for example, the Fox News defamation settlement that happened.
Yeah,
Fox News didn't touch it. Now a lot of other conservative outlets touched it, but Fox News didn't touch it, which it is newsworthy stuff. At the same time, you have CNN that if it slightly says something bad about Biden or Hunter Biden or they don't show it either. And I wish we had a news media or a news network that would go ahead and say the story, don't sugarcoat nothing, and just stick to the story, good or bad. Your political view or against your political view or for your political view. I wish we had a media like that. I wish we had a media that was fair and truly balanced and will come to the table like we're doing tonight and just everything on the line.
And the problem is we used to. And you had talked about Ronald Reagan. The Reagan administration got rid of what was called the Fairness Doctrine, where the Fairness Doctrine, if you were a news organization and you went on the news and you knowingly lied about something, you got fined. You got a massive fine from the U.S. government. If you went on and you had to go run your retraction story had to be just as big as the story you ran. Like you couldn't run like at 2:00 in the morning, like, hey, yeah, we screwed this up. Anyway, on to the next story.
Right.
Like, no, you had to give just as much coverage as to why you lied and what you lied about and everything else on top of the fine you paid. If you cherry picked a story, same thing. If you got a story legitimately wrong, like you thought you had all of your ducks in a row, you thought you had all the right information, but it ended up that you got the story wrong, you didn't get fined, but you still had to run a retraction. You had to say, hey, we got this wrong. So there were a lot of news agencies that didn't just rush to the air as soon as something broke. They made sure they had the story right. And when they got rid of the Fairness Doctrine, that went away. That's when you started getting news organizations that would just jump on the air and say whatever they could say to fill 24 hours of space. And honestly, I believe that if we brought back the Fairness Doctrine, that would fix a lot of the problems we see in the news. Because, you could have your bias. Like, we all know that, like Walter Cronkite was probably more left-leaning than right-leaning.
But he was a fair journalist.
But, yeah, he was beyond reproach in his reporting. You knew that if he told you something, he didn't care if you were mad about his story. He didn't care if you liked his story. He just told you the story. And I think that broadcasting in this country, news in this country would go back to that if we brought back the Fairness Doctrine. You get on TV and you lie, $1 million fine right off the bat.
And don't get me wrong, I understand the implications of that. They're looking out for the First Amendment with the freedom of the press and all that stuff. But like me, a lot like Nashville shootings. Okay, the Nashville shooting that happened. I waited a little while before I came out with something. Why? Because I wanted to know what was the facts. I don't want to get on this podcast or on TikTok and report something that's wrong. And if I find out it is wrong, well, I'm going to go ahead and pull it off. That's how I am. And I understand the implications of that, but at the same time, I just, because I'm gonna use, for example, you mentioned something, and I don't know if you ever read Tucker Carlson's book, The Long Slide, and basically what it is him talking about how he got into journalism, and he reads some stories that he put back in the day, and he said that on there. He said, back in even 2005, if an editor would tick off a politician, they held that as a badge of honor. Because, hey, they did something right. They exposed the politician, and it didn't matter who it was, left, right, it didn't matter. They held that as a badge of honor. They said, because we got it right. But now, and it's sad to say that, but Republicans, not saying Republicans, news media people are more worried about kissing butt to certain politicians than getting the story right or passing an agenda, left or right. And it's sad. It's sad that we did. And you know what, though? I'm going to say this in my final thought, and I'm going to let you wrap it up and tell people where they can find you. I think this is why podcasts and TikTok and other forms of social media is doing way better than any news media. And people go to our platforms to find out stories. It's because we don't sugarcoat it, and we're honest, and we give you the truth. And that's one reason why you got so many people after TikTok, because there's so much people that talk on there. You can't filter all of them. Hey, so we're just going to band it, go with the good, and, we will take out the bad also with the good.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point on, the First Amendment for the freedom of the press, the issue is also every freedom you have to have responsibilities.
Yes, I agree
with freedoms. Otherwise, it's just anarchy.
Yep.
You know, like the First Amendment, yeah, it has limitations. If you're a news organization, you can't disclose classified information, or like Geraldo Rivera found out, you can't disclose where troops are.
Right.
You can't threaten people. You can't libel someone. You can't slander someone. And that's where I think, like I said, bringing back the fairness doctrine would fix a lot of that. Because, yeah, you do have the freedom of speech. You can call out politicians on things, but you can't just openly lie about it.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So I definitely think that would be a step in the right direction, is bringing that back. And that would help keep both sides honest, not just the right. On the left, we love to think that, only the Fox News and OAN will bullshit us. Really? Have you ever watched the Young Turks? I mean, don't get me wrong. I like watching the Young Turks, but I know for a fact that they cherry pick what they want their audience to hear. Rachel Maddow does the same. I mean, I love Rachel Maddow, but I know that she cherry picks some of the shit that she says. So I think that if you're going to call yourself a news organization, you need to be held to a higher standard. So like I said, I definitely think that could fix a lot of problems. And I think people sitting down having a beer together would fix a lot of problems as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree. And like I said, look, like tonight, man, hey, this was a good, and I can say total of 2 hours. We've been recording for an hour and a half. But we talked about a half an hour before on all kind of subjects. But Leroy, if you can, please tell people where they can find you on TikTok, and if you ever want to have another conversation, let me know, man.
Dude, absolutely. Like I said, we didn't even hit on the Second Amendment, police brutality, the First Amendment, like the First Amendment in detail. There are so many things that I think we could have great conversations about. But if anybody wants to see my videos, I don't know if anybody can see the name. It's period liberal trucker on TikTok and on Instagram. I'm not on nearly as much social. Okay, my hands are going the opposite direction here. I'm not on nearly as much social media as he is. It was just like my little niche that I enjoy. But yeah, absolutely. Like I said, and I do lives as often as I can. I mean, unfortunately, driving a truck, there are some nights where I don't get pulled over till 11:30 at night. So not really going to start a live at that point. But yeah, like I said, I love having conversations with conservatives that, like I said, I know a lot of my videos are fairly inflammatory towards conservatives. And yeah, part of that is for the views. It's for the recognition. Like I told you, if you can have the greatest message in the world, and if nobody hears your message, it doesn't do any good. Right. So, yeah, sometimes you do have to play to your audience. But fortunately, now that my audience is kind of big enough, I can kind of start, directing it in the exact. I can start taking the page in the exact direction I want to take it.
And that's good. That's good. But Leroy, man, it was nice talking with you this hour and a half on this bonus episode of the Cajun Conservative Show. Please, let's stay in touch, and I'll be right back with you after we close out the show if you hold on for a couple of seconds.
After my phone's down to 14%, so.
All right, we won't take absolutely. Long. All right, everybody, I want to thank you for listening to this special episode of the Cajun Conservative Show. Please remember to hit the subscribe button, hit the follow button on the platform you're listening on. Remember that Jesus Christ is King. He's coming back, and he's coming back soon. So don't be faint of heart, because Jesus has overcome the world. Until next time, be blessed, be encouraged. You have a good one.
He said that Jesus Christ has risen, and he is the open door.